Hello and welcome to Arty Hearty Life. I'm Maria and today I am painting A Starry Night Over Paris. It's based on A Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, and I have just left out his foreground and midground and painted the Paris skyline instead. Now today I'm joined by my son Jake.
Hello!
Hello Jake.
Hello!
And he will be adding his comments as we go through this video. Now first of all, the paints I'm using 6 colours basically. That's phthalo blue, cadmium yellow deep hue, titanium white and Mars black, plus a little bit of burnt umber and cadmium red medium hue. I've actually used mainly the De La Rowney graduate acrylics, which are a student grade paint. They're a very good quality. It's not worth buying artist grade, I don't think, until you're very experienced and actually selling art. Even if you're selling art, you can still use this grade. They're still really good. They're just not... Sometimes they're not as strongly pigmented, but I don't think that's noticeable until you're very, very experienced.
You sound very, very experienced.
Thank you. I'm about 1 year experienced, a bit over a year, so that's not very compared to most of the professional artists out there. When I first started out, I was using these Wilko paints, which I think are probably made by the same company as makes the Boldmere paints that we get in the works, because they come in exactly the same tubes with just different printing on them. Now the only reason that I haven't used those throughout this painting is that they don't do phthalo blue and cadmium yellow deep. Now when I painted the sunflowers in the window on A Starry Night, I used the Wilko paints and I substituted the ultramarine blue and the lemon yellow, because those were the only blue and yellow that they did that fitted the palette at all. But I didn't like the results. I didn't like the way the colours came out. They just didn't have the zing that you need in this picture. I think it all looked a bit dull. So I will be repainting that one again soon now that I have upgraded my paints. As far as the brushes are concerned, I used 4 brushes. I used this big fat flat brush for the background. That's about 1.25 inches wide. I used this smaller flat brush for some of the filling in of the buildings and some of the highlights on them. And then for the sky and the stars, I used mainly this sort of medium-sized round brush. It says it's a number 8 on it. And then this detailed brush, which I don't like to call a detailed brush really, because it doesn't come to a nice fine point. In fact, you get a better point on the round brush. So when you want to fine a line, it's better to use that and just use the very tip of it than it is to use the so-called detailed brush.
Wow.
But when I was painting that sky, the detailed brush was useful when I didn't want as much paint, because I wasn't ever going to get a bigger splodge with it as I might with the round brush if I pressed too hard. So that's the brushes. Now that's the original on screen now, in the corner, Vincent van Gogh's A Starry Night.
It really is amazing.
It's a lovely painting. I've always loved that painting, and this is about the 5th time I've painted A Starry Night.
Yeah.
All in all, we've got a few around the house, haven't we? Now then, I wasn't actually, because I've painted it a few times, I wasn't actually looking at the reference picture while I painted the sky. So I wound up actually putting it all a little bit lower down than I really wanted. I think I needed to do all the details of the sky a bit higher up and have more area in the foreground for the buildings. I tell the tale of the trials and tribulations I encountered while painting A Starry Night for the very first time in my blog on my Facebook page, which I'll link in the description. this is the painting that I will be presenting on my first paint night, which is on Thursday the 25th of January. Which, all things being well, if I get all this if I get the editing finalised, then that will be in a few days' time. If all things are not well and I am delayed in uploading this, then it will be in the past. Right, now I've just about finished the background, and so it's time to start putting the buildings in. The first thing I did to plan where the buildings were going to go was I took a photograph of the sky painted, and then I got an app on my tablet and drew in the buildings quite roughly onto that. There it is, just to get an idea of the placements. I looked on Pixabay and Google for images of Paris's skyline, just in order to see what buildings I wanted to use and what shapes they were.
I think it would have been really cool if you kept with the idea of the water in there. Is that water?
Yeah, I did. I was thinking that I would paint the river, the Seine, in the foreground. Again, I think that would have worked better if I'd have got all that sky a bit further up, and then the buildings could have been a little bit further up to give a bit more room for the water. But I was also thinking that if I had to paint in the water, it would take that much longer and we wouldn't have time to complete it on a paint night. But I'll probably have another go at it another time and move things around a bit in order to fit the river in the foreground.
Oh, okay.
Now, when I chalked in the outlines of the buildings, as you saw there, and then I wasn't very happy with it, wasn't very confident with it. So then I decided to bite the bullet and dig out Photoshop and have a go in that. So I cut up some bits of clip art and vector art of the Paris landmarks and plonked them onto the background photo I'd taken. And then started messing about with them and rearranging them and starting to confuse myself as to how I wanted to do it. So I did a few different options and I put them on Facebook and asked people what they thought. And people said to me that the best one was the one that had the buildings lower down, didn't have buildings filling up the painting so much, so that we could see the sky, which is what I originally wanted, but I'd kind of got a bit carried away looking at the various different pictures on Pixabay and Google and started to get other ideas and got away from what I'd originally intended. But asking for people's opinions helped bring me back to what I originally wanted to do. And so that is the final mock-up that I then worked from in placing the buildings onto the painting. And so we've got the good old Eiffel Tower that is placed in the same positioning as the cypress tree in the original painting.
I think it really makes it look quite nice. And I'm glad you left all the space in there for the sky. It really is just beautiful.
Thank you. You're so kind. Yeah, excuse my big head butting in front of the camera there. When I was doing these bits, I just felt the need to get closer to the canvas. So basically the buildings I've done very simply. I've just done their outlines in black, filled them in black, and then added some white highlights just so that where the buildings overlap we can actually see which building is which. But that you don't need to do that. You can just have the outline, the silhouettes completely in black. And a lot of the pictures that I looked at on Pixabay and Google were like that. You could just see the outline. You couldn't the overall outline as opposed to the outlines of the individual buildings. But I liked the look of it with a little bit of detail in it.
The highlights really add to the picture. There's so much detail in each and every one of them. It would have been hard to distinguish the buildings without them, I think.
Yeah, it would have. It would have been harder.
Especially the Louvre.
You know which one the Louvre is?
I think.
Which one's the Louvre?
The triangles?
The one with the triangles in front, yes. The building behind the triangles is the Louvre as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that now. Aren't the triangles in, like, the middle of a lake and you go underneath the lake or something?
They're not in a lake.
Or you
There's
go
a great
underneath?
You do go, yeah, they do.
Oh, there's a great big flat area, isn't there?
Yes.
Where people would, like, flock, wouldn't they?
Yeah. And then the entranceway is in the triangle area, and then
Which
you go
would be
down
in the middle.
underground and into the main building.
Oh, look, the video is ended.
That's the finished, well, it's not quite ended. That's the finished painting, and that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please subscribe to the channel and follow me on Facebook, Instagram.
Pentagram.
No, not Pentagram either. Instagram and Twitter. My username on all those is at Arty Life. I'm also on Tumblr, and where else am I? I'm on DeviantArt.
You're on YouTube?
I'm on YouTube. I am right here.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.